Hello students and welcome back to the video lecture series of software engineering. Today we are going to continue the previous lecture, that is Introduction to Requirement Engineering. I am your instructor Shruti Rawal. Let us start with today's lecture. So our first topic is categories of requirement, and the categories are functional requirement and non-functional requirement. Now let us study in detail what do you mean by functional requirement. Functional requirement is basically any requirement which specifies what the system should do. Okay, so all the functionalities that your customer requests to be implemented inside your project are known as functional requirement. What are the example? For example, if you create a login page, so that login is one of the functionality, right? You create a registration page. So whenever you are registering a user, that is one of the functionality. The transaction processing, that is one of the functionality. For example, the ticket cancellation, that is one of the functionality. Reporting, that is one of the functionality. So these all are the different functionalities related to different projects, and that you can consider inside functional requirement. Now the next category of requirement is non-functional requirement. Any requirement which specifies how the system performs certain function, right? So basically all the quality attributes related to your software product comes under the non-functional requirement. Example: availability, reliability, recoverability, maintainability, serviceability, security, etc. Right? So these all are nothing but they are the quality attributes related to your software project, and they actually depict that how does your system perform a particular function. That is non-functional requirement. So whenever you are taking the requirement from customer, you need to be clear what are the functional requirement that are required and what are the non-functional requirement which are required by the customer. So this is one of the example of functional as well as non-functional requirement for library management system. So for library management system, you can see that the functional requirements are all the functionalities that we perform in the software. For example, adding a book, updating, deleting a book, searching a book, issuing a book, buying a book, payment, member inquiry, late fees, placing an order, etc. Right? And the non-functional requirement are safety, security, any other constraints like reliability, etc. Right? So this is an example of functional as well as non-functional requirement. You need to describe the functional requirement as well as non-functional requirement in your SRS. Now the next topic that we are going to study is feasibility study. What do you mean by feasibility? Feasibility is the practical extent to which a project can be performed successfully. So basically it determines whether the solution that you are going to consider is practical and workable or not. Right? Now the things that are studied in feasibility varies. So it is not only whether your project will be a successful project or not. There are different genres in which we need to consider the feasibility, like you have to consider the resource availability, the cost estimation, what will be the benefits of developing the software, what will be the maintenance cost, and the cost feasibility, right? So these all are the different things that you need to consider in feasibility. Based on these factors, you have different types of feasibility. The first being technical feasibility. Now technical feasibility is basically the capability of converting ideas into working system. That is, the technical ideas into working system. Are the ideas which are in your mind technically correct or technically workable or not, right? So if I am thinking something which is very extraordinary and which may resolve a very good problem, but is it practically possible to implement that thing, right? That is known as technical feasibility. Technical feasibility consists of the technology that you are using, that is the software. Also it consists of the hardware, the technical hardware. If there is an embedded project, the technicality of the hardware as well as the software, the integration, is it possible between that hardware and the software that you are going to implement, that is also considered inside the technical feasibility. It also analyzes the technical skills of your team, right? So it is a possibility that your team is not technically very sound, so they are lacking the capability of developing a system which you are thinking to develop. Then there is a problem in technical feasibility, right? Also, whether the technology that you are using, the relevant technology that you will use in this project is stable or not, right? Also, these sort of technical feasibility is analyzed in your first phase, that is elicitation phase, you can say, right? After inception, you determine the technical feasibility of your project. The next type of feasibility is operational feasibility. Operational feasibility basically assess the extent to which your software is useful to solve any business problem and user requirement. It means once your software is created and it is operational in the actual world, what is the problem that it is solving, whether the users are requiring this software or not. So what are the things that operational feasibility focuses on? The first thing is whether problems faced are on higher priority or not. So every product which is developed in software industry is a need of some problem, right? So there is a need that is arising due to some problem, and as a solution of that problem we are developing the software. So what are the problems faced and actually are they on higher priority to be solved? Because there are very trivial problems which are faced in the industry, and it is not necessary to solve every problem, right? So you have to consider all the problems which are on higher priority and try to solve them. Then only you can say that your software has a good operational feasibility. The next thing that you need to consider in operational feasibility is, are there acceptable solutions? It is a possibility that there are multiple solutions for a single problem, but are there acceptable solutions that you are going to implement? So there may be one or two solutions which you are combining and developing a product. So is this solution accepted by the users or not? And the last question that you need to ask while determining operational feasibility is, will the users adapt to new solution? Because we know that for a single problem there are multiple solutions or multiple softwares available in the market, but every product is not successful, right? Why it is so? Because users are always resistant towards adapting the new things, right? That is true in software industry. So you have to determine the operational feasibility before you actually start developing the product. And mainly the operational feasibility is dependent on the development team and the visualization of the installed operating software. So if you want to determine the operational feasibility before actually starting the project, you need a good visualization of how will this software work in real world. Okay, so that is what is operational feasibility. The next type of feasibility is economic feasibility, which is also one of the most important feasibility to study. We develop a software obviously for solving a particular need, but we are not an NGO. We do not want to develop a software free of cost. We want some gain. That is, I am talking about monetary gain, right? So there must be profits involved if I am developing a software. You have to determine whether the software is capable of generating financial gain or not. Now, this we are talking about the long term gain. We are not talking about the short term gain, right? So the word that I have used throughout the lectures of software engineering is sustainability, and I am talking about economic sustainability as well. So if you have a short term need and if you are developing a software for that short term need, you will gain economically for short term, but economic feasibility suggests that you have to check for long term gains. Okay, now for determining economic feasibility, what are the costs that you have to consider? all the requirement elicitation cost, all the analysis cost, cost of hardware, cost of software, cost of team, cost of training the team, cost of development, cost of other environmental resources. These all are the costs that you need to take into consideration while you are determining the economic feasibility, right? So these were the types of feasibility. Now the next topic is software requirement specification. That is nothing but that is a document which completely specifies the proposed software. So you are developing a software, and before starting the designing of the software, you must have your software requirement specification. So we have already studied the 7 stages of requirement engineering, right? So after the completion of 7 stages, we will have this SRS document which will completely specify the requirements, that is functional requirements, non-functional requirements, feasibility study, all the diagrams, right, that we have actually gone through in the requirement engineering task. Now, what does the SRS consist of? It consists of complete information description about your system. It also consists of a detailed function description, because we know that in elaboration phase we have actually elaborated, or you can say you have refined every functionality and non-functional requirement, right? So we will have a detailed function description in SRS. Also we will have how the system will behave, right? So we will have the system behavior depiction via different sort of diagrams. Also we will have an indication of performance requirements, the constraints that are applied on our software, different validation criteria that we have applied, right? So you may wonder that, ma'am, why are we doing this SRS? This is a very heavy documentation to prepare. What is the actual use of SRS? The basic use of SRS is the developers which will start the designing will get an overview that how to develop the perfect architecture of the software, which will in turn be helpful in all the designing and the coding, right? If you have a good SRS, that will basically depict the good software. Also, it will help the client to understand their own needs. Sometimes the clients are unclear about their needs. So if you have a graphical representation in SRS about all the requirements that they have suggested, you may take this SRS to client, and client may filter, or you can say understand their own needs in a better way, right? So this is software requirement specification. Now let us study what are the characteristic of good SRS. Now the first characteristic of good SRS is obviously it needs to be correct, right? If it is not correct, if there is some incorrect information in SRS, is it good? No, incorrect information anywhere is not good, right? So the first characteristic of SRS, it needs to be correct and accurate, right? Many assumptions are done, many estimations are done, but we need to be thorough in our estimation strategies, and we need to be as accurate as possible. There should not be any unambiguous or conflicting requirements. You know that you have already eradicated the conflicting requirements in the requirement engineering task. So we need to be clear that after the requirement engineering task is completed, and after we have this work product, that is SRS, there should be no unambiguous or conflicting requirements present in SRS. It should be complete. Incomplete SRS is very dangerous, right? So if you have some of the information, if you are lacking some of the information, that lacking of information is dangerous. So the SRS must be complete. It must be ranked for importance. So there are certain things which are on higher priority, there are certain things which may be on lower priority. It is important to rank them, right? The next is it should be modifiable, because we know that the last task in requirement engineering is requirement management, and we have discussed it in the previous lecture that requirement management, it means that during the course of development, if there is a change in requirement from client, we need to modify everything in the requirement engineering task that we have performed. So that includes your SRS as well. So you have to prepare SRS in such a way that it can include the modification. So it must be modifiable. It must be traceable. If the SRS itself is very complex, if I don't know what to see where, if it is not traceable, what is the use of SRS? Nothing. So it must be very clear, precise and traceable. Verifiable, again it should be verifiable. I must be able to verify the details in SRS. I must be able to understand what are the details, and then only I can verify them. And the last is it should be consistent. There should be not many inconsistency in your SRS. So the last topic of today's lecture is, this is a basic template of SRS, right? So this template may vary from again project to project, project manager to project manager, right? So the analyst of your company will prepare this template, and it varies drastically, but still you can go through this template. You can see over here that there are main 6 headings. The first is introduction, which specifies the basic scope of your project, your purpose, why are you developing, right? All the document convention, and you also refer to the intended audience, and you give the reading suggestions, right, in the introduction section. The next is the overall description. So in the introduction section we have already defined what is the purpose and project scope. Now we are going to detail the project scope. So we will have a more clear idea what is the perspective of our project, what are the different features and functionalities of our product. Also you will have use cases, right, and the different characteristic of the users that are involved in our project, what will be the operating environment in which our product will work. Also there will be some assumption and dependencies that are included in your overall description. The next is system features and functionality. Now here in overall description you may have listed the functionalities and features. In the system features you are actually elaborating all the functionalities via different diagrams, right? So that is the refinement. System feature 1, system feature 2, it means you can use different diagrams for detailing the functionalities. The next is external interface requirement. There may be some user interfaces which are required. There may be some hardware and software interfaces which are required. You may specify that all interfaces requirement as well as the development environment requirements over here. The next is, we have talked about the functional requirements up till now. Now we are going to talk in the 5th section about non-functional requirements. That is, what are the performance, safety, security and other quality attributes associated with our product, and what are we going to do about them, right? So that is what is included in non-functional requirement. And last is other requirement, you can specify in the appendix, right? So this is just a basic structure of SRS. It may vary from person to person, project to project and company to company. It is upon you. But SRS, a good SRS should consist of the overall description of your product, such that the client as well as the developers who are going to refer SRS get the perfect idea of what the system is about. In SRS we are not concerned about how is the system being developed. We are only concerned about what is to be developed, right? So this was the basic template of SRS, and this was all about today's lecture. Thank you.